Stay with me, buddy. You have to fight this.
I'm trying.
I know, I'm here.
The clock on the wall felt like a bomb ticking down in the penthouse that night. Every second was another step closer to the unthinkable. The entire fortress of Charles the Shadow Mancini, a mafia boss who controlled entire cities with a phone call, was now suffocating in silence, except for the faint, cruel beeping of a heart monitor in the living room. His only son, Roy, just 7 years old, was lying pale and motionless on a medical bed that shouldn't even exist in a home. The doctors had said those nightmare words only minutes ago. He has 1 hour left. We've done all we can. Charles stood frozen near the massive window overlooking the glittering city he owned. The world outside sparkled with lights and life, but inside him, there was nothing but a black, consuming void. For years, he had been untouchable, feared, powerful, ruthless. His empire stretched across continents. His enemies disappeared without a trace. And yet, at this moment, all his billions, all his guns, all his power couldn't buy one extra heartbeat for his son. But what Charles didn't know was that downstairs, in the shadows of his own house, someone was preparing to do the impossible. Who poisoned Roy? Why can't the best doctors in the world save him? And what does the quiet black maid know that no one else does? Downstairs, the household staff whispered in corners, their faces twisted with grief. Among them was Odessa, the family's maid. She was young, invisible, humble, someone Charles barely acknowledged. But she had a secret passed down through generations. A secret that modern medicine had forgotten. She loved Roy like her own little brother. Every morning, she would sneak him hot cocoa with cinnamon, even when Charles's strict rules forbade anything except his optimized diet. Roy adored her. His laughter always returned when Odessa was around. But now, that laughter was dying. Charles slammed his fist against the reinforced steel wall, his knuckles splitting open. Blood dripped to the black marble floor. What's the use of all this power if I can't save my own son? Dr. Stern, the lead toxicologist, placed a trembling hand on Charles's shoulder. His face was pale with terror. Sir, there's nothing more we can do. The toxin it's ancient, plant-based, completely untraceable. We can't identify it, which means we can't synthesize an antidote. His organs are failing. He has less than an hour. I suggest you say your goodbyes. But who would use an ancient, untraceable poison on a child? Was this an assassination attempt? And why did Roy collapse right after dinner? Charles's knees buckled. He fell beside his son's bed, gripping Roy's tiny, cold hand. Roy, Papa's here, Capo. Please don't go. Roy blinked weakly, his lips cracked and trembling. Papa, I hurt. Charles's voice cracked, something that hadn't happened in 20 years. I know, my shadow. I know. Just fight a little longer. Papa will make them pay for this. But Roy didn't seem to hear. His clouded eyes stared at the ceiling. Odessa told me if I got scared, to think of the cocoa she makes. The one with cinnamon. Charles froze. Odessa. The maid. The invisible woman who moved through his world of blood and gold like a ghost. He had never spoken more than 3 words to her. She said it makes the bad things go away, Roy whispered, his grip on Charles's hand slipping. She's nice, Papa. Charles's heart shattered. His son's last thoughts weren't about the empire, the legacy, or the power. They were about a simple act of kindness from someone Charles had dismissed as insignificant. And that realization destroyed him. Before I continue, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and to tell us what time is it right now. In her small, cramped room near the servants' stairs, Odessa sat rigid with terror. Her hands pressed over her mouth, muffling her sobs. She had seen the doctors leave, defeat written all over their faces. She had heard Charles's guttural cry, a sound more terrifying than any gunshot she'd ever heard in this house. He can't die. Not Roy. A cold, fierce conviction stronger than fear gripped her chest. This wasn't just grief. This was a call to action. Odessa knew something the doctors didn't. She knew that modern medicine, with all its gleaming machines and expensive drugs, often missed what lay deep in the earth, what the old ways held, what her grandmother had taught her. She had seen her grandmother heal wounds and illnesses that city doctors called fatal. But using that knowledge here, in the house of a mafia boss? If Charles caught her interfering with his son, especially with something unscientific, unapproved, unauthorized, she wouldn't just be fired. She would disappear. Permanently. But Roy's small, trusting face flashed in her mind. She couldn't let him go. She wouldn't. Odessa moved fast. She pulled up a loose floorboard near her cot, a secret hiding place she'd kept since arriving. From the dark cavity, she retrieved a small, intricately carved wooden chest. It wasn't expensive. It was priceless. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, were several glass vials. She picked one, a dark, almost black liquid that was unnervingly thick. This wasn't for common colds or headaches. This was the Mamba's Kiss antidote, a potent, traditionally prepared African remedy meant specifically to combat the fastest-acting organic toxins, the kind of poison used by assassins. Her grandmother, a renowned herbalist, had warned her, never use this unless death is absolutely certain. It's powerful. It's dangerous. And if you fail, there's no coming back. A heavy knock startled her. Odessa? The boss wants you upstairs. Now. It was Vinny, Charles's right hand. His voice was a gravelly monotone that always meant danger. Odessa snapped the box shut, concealing the vial in the pocket of her uniform. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but the fear was overshadowed by desperate focus. "Coming, Mr. Vinny," she called, her voice steady. She ran up the stairs. In the hallway, a younger maid grabbed her arm, eyes wide with terror. "What are you doing?" "They said he's dying." "Don't go up there, Odessa. He'll kill you for just looking at him wrong." Odessa met her eyes, the vial heavy in her pocket. "There's still time. If there's even a 1% chance, I have to try." She walked into the medical bay. Charles didn't even acknowledge her. He was kneeling beside Roy, his massive shoulders shaking silently. Armed guards stood at the door, watching her with cold menace. "Sir," Odessa whispered, her voice cutting through the heavy silence. Charles spun around, his face feral, dangerous. He saw a young black woman in a maid's uniform staring at his dying son. "What do you want right now?" "Leave. Now." "Sir, please." She stepped forward, pulling the vial from her pocket. The glass looked tiny and ridiculously fragile against the backdrop of medical machinery and armed men. "I beg you. Let me try this. It's a remedy. A counteragent. My grandmother taught me. It's for poisons." Charles stared at the vial, then at her. Fury mixed with utter confusion. "Are you insane?" Charles took a step toward her, his posture threatening immediate violence. "Do you know who I am? The finest physicians from Johns Hopkins were just here. They told me modern science has nothing. And you think your folk magic can save my son?" He moved closer, towering over her. "Get that filth away from him. If you touch my son, I will not hesitate. You will pay for it in ways you can't imagine." But Odessa didn't flinch. The fear was still there, screaming in her veins, but Roy's life was a bigger force. She had nothing to lose but her life, and she was willing to trade it for his. "I know who you are, Mr. Mancini. I know what you can do," she said, her voice stronger now, clear and unwavering. "But you love him. And if you love him, you know that when the powerful have failed, sometimes you have to turn to the invisible. I can't live knowing I didn't try. And you won't either. Please, let me do this for him." The room went silent. Charles's breath hitched. He saw the genuine, desperate terror in her eyes. But beneath it was something else, a rock-solid conviction that mirrored his own ruthlessness in a turf war. She wasn't asking for money. She wasn't asking for protection. She was asking to risk her life for his son. He looked down at Roy. The heartbeat rhythm was slowing. The beeps stretched further and further apart. 3:20 a.m. 40 minutes left. The sight of that monitor, The final, inevitable approach of the flatline broke the last shred of Charles's control. His empire was an illusion. His money was worthless. His power was a joke. What difference did it make if she killed Roy slightly sooner? He was dying anyway. If there was one chance, a whisper of hope in the heart of this humble woman he'd ignored for years, he had to take it. He raised his hand, stopping Vinny, who was already moving in to remove Odessa. His cold, deadly eyes locked onto hers. If this hurts him, Odessa, I will make your death slow and spectacular. Do you understand me? Odessa nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes, sir. I understand. Charles gestured silently, giving her access to his son. It was the most terrifying surrender of control he had ever made. Odessa knelt beside the bed. She placed her palm over Roy's chest, taking a deep, calming breath. She closed her eyes, murmuring a prayer, a low, rhythmic chant in a dialect Charles had never heard before. It sounded ancient, primal, utterly out of place in this sterile tomb of wealth and technology. She carefully opened the vial. The dark liquid looked like mud or ink. Charles watched, motionless, every fiber of his being screaming in silent protest. She gently tilted Roy's head and administered 5 drops onto his tongue. The waiting was unbearable. Charles watched the heart monitor, his breath suspended in his chest. Nothing. For 5 long seconds, the slow, dragging rhythm continued. Beep, beep. Then, abruptly, it began to slow even further. The gap widened. Beep. Beep. Dr. Stern shouted from across the room. Boss, his pulse is dropping. It's accelerating the failure. Stop her. Charles raised his hand again, silencing him. He had committed. He would see this through. Then, a moment of profound, terrifying silence. The monitor went still. A flatline. The long, continuous beep of death filled the room. Charles's world dissolved. His legs gave out. He whispered, defeated, broken, he's gone. Vinny stepped forward, hand on his gun, eyes locked on Odessa. But then, as Odessa squeezed her eyes shut in desperate prayer, a faint tremor ran through Roy's body. His chest heaved once. The flatline flickered. Then, beep. A single, strong, impossibly rapid beat. Beep, beep, beep. The rhythm was chaotic at first, then stabilized into a fast, strong cadence. Doctor, Charles roared, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock and relief. Doctor, get over here now. His pulse. It's back. Dr. Stern rushed back to the bedside, his face frozen in disbelief as he stared at the monitor. This is impossible. His heart rate is stabilizing. The toxin, it's neutralizing. How? What did she do? Charles fell onto his knees beside Roy's bed, his face buried in his hands. The man who had faced down rival mobs, the FBI, entire SWAT teams, and countless assassination attempts, wept uncontrollably. He turned toward Odessa, who was standing back against the wall, tears of exhaustion and relief streaming down her face. What did you do? Charles's voice was hoarse, unrecognizable. Odessa, what was that? She looked down, humble as ever, but with a quiet dignity he had never noticed before. It's old medicine, Mr. Mancini, made of roots and faith. It was meant to save what the world gives up on. She met his eye. And in that moment, the power dynamic in the room fundamentally shifted. The doctors scrambled to take readings and administer supportive care. Roy was still unconscious, but his color was returning. His breathing was deep and steady. He was going to live. Hours later, as the sun rose and cast pale gold light across the blood-stained penthouse, Charles called Odessa into his private study. The room was heavy with silence. He sat behind his mahogany desk, a fortress of power that now felt incredibly fragile. I offered the doctors $1 million to save him, Charles said, his voice low and raw. They told me to prepare for a funeral. You did what billions and battalions couldn't. You saved him, Odessa. He pushed a thick, unmarked envelope across the desk. It contained enough cash to buy her a comfortable life anywhere in the world.
Take it.
It's not enough, but it's a start. You're set for life. Odessa gently pushed the envelope back. Charles stared at her, genuinely shocked. Everyone took the money. It was the currency of his world. The language of power.
No, sir.
I appreciate the gesture, but I can't take it. I did it for Roy because he's a kind boy. Not for money. Charles leaned forward, his eyes burning with a new, unsettling emotion, something he hadn't felt in decades. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That life, kindness, and love are far more powerful than money, power, or fear. I've been blind, building a kingdom on violence, and I almost lost my only light. Roy woke up later that afternoon. His first words were weak but clear. Where's Odessa? Charles brought her to Roy's bedside. The boy's face lit up the moment he saw her. He reached out with his small hand, and Odessa took it gently, tears falling freely now. Papa, Roy whispered, looking up at Charles with big, tired eyes. Odessa saved me. She's my angel. Charles watched them, the Mafia boss who controlled cities, staring at a maid holding his son's hand, and for the first time in his life, he understood what true power looked like. From that day forward, everything changed. Charles didn't abandon his empire, but he changed his heart. He secretly began redirecting protection money into funding medical clinics in the poorest sections of the city, the same sections he once controlled through fear and violence. And Odessa? She stayed. Not as a maid, but as Roy's beloved guardian, his second mother, and Charles Mancini's most trusted friend, the one person in his life whose power came not from a gun, but from a heart that truly cared. The Mafia boss finally learned the true weight of a debt that could never be settled with cash. Because sometimes the most powerful thing in the world isn't violence or money. It's love. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. My husband challenged me that I can't reach 1,000 subscribers. He said these stories don't matter anymore. Let's prove him wrong together. Thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me.